I'll call to order the meeting of the Sunnyvale Taipei Development Corporation Board of Directors, Wednesday, August the 8th, 2018, at 5:04. Our first piece of business will be the public forum. Would anyone that's in attendance tonight like to speak before the public forum?
Mr. Weeks, if you don't mind saying that Terry is absent.
All members of the board are present except Ms. Shatter, and we have a quorum.
Thank you.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Thank y'all for attending. Based on the number, y'all have quadrupled our normal audience for one of these meetings, and we appreciate it.
We're waiting on traffic to die down, basically.
Yeah.
It looked like a school day out there today, didn't it?
Scared me.
Public forum. No one is here to speak, correct? All right, I'll close the public forum and move on to discussion action items. The first would be to discuss and consider approval of the July the 11th, 2018 regular meeting minutes.
I just had one comment on them. It's a minor point, but I abstained on that vote because I wasn't at the June meeting, so in July I did not vote on it, so.
Then I'll have to bring them back for another meeting so that we have a quorum that votes on it.
See what you
Just making the point.
Are you abstaining from the whole meeting? I mean, whole meeting minutes?
I wasn't at the meeting.
Oh, neither was I.
did. The June
You
meeting.
can
the
still
June
vote
meeting.
on
Oh, the
it
June
even though
meeting.
you weren't at the meeting. If you are comfortable with that, you can still vote even though you were not attending.
Can I amend my no vote? Or my abstain vote?
Sure.
Let's do it. That's fine. I mean, if that's possible, that's fine. I'd like to do that so we don't have to bring it back up.
Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
I wasn't there. You're talking about July, right?
July.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the July 2018 meeting.
I'll second that.
All in favor? The June financial reporting will be discussed in July. Item 3 is to discuss and consider updates from Mike Anderson, the Sunnyvale Center. Mr. Anderson, please. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Mike Anderson, 3218 East Highway 30. Here tonight to represent Sunnyvale Center, just to kind of give you an update on what's going on. We're very excited about all the activity at the intersection. Quick Trip should start construction here in the next 4 to 5 weeks on their store. We have incentivized them to start early. We just need some activity out there. We need something being built more than anything else. And we are currently working with Whataburger. Whataburger is going to go on the west side of Quick Trip, facing Highway 80. So Quick Trip's kind of on the corner. So they will be up there right on the service road of Highway 80. We've had a couple of design issues. They're right there in the elbow of our internal ring road. And so just short a few feet here and there. And they're doing a new design today, and we're working with them to make sure they're able to fit in. So we should have that site plan change here in the next, I'm gonna say week. Then let staff review it. We've been working with staff. Staff's been very helpful. They actually coming up with ideas on how to make it fit and work. We thought we may have to move Whataburger down to the Collins Road frontage next to Quick Trip, right across from where Chick-fil-A is going. But we really want them on Highway 80. We really think that'll be a beacon because you can see it from so far away. So working on that. I got 2 hotel groups that are looking to put a hotel in at Lupton and Highway 80 on the same side as the Assisted Living Center. There's a Cal Street next to the Assisted Living Center where you kind of enter into it. They would go north of Cal Street towards Highway 80. So they'd be on that side. And we're kind of excited about that. We're seeing some activity there. And I'm currently working with a sit-down restaurant that I can't tell you about, but I'll just give you one clue. It's one of Tracy's favorite breakfast restaurants. So y'all have to determine what that is. Happy to answer any questions.
Again, about the Whataburger, where is it now gonna be? Next to Quick Trip?
It's right next to Quick Trip. Look there on that site plan. I think you see where Quick Trip is.
Mm-hmm.
This would be the west side of Quick Trip, where they're building the access road off of Highway 80 to come into the Quick Trip. It would be the lot right next to it.
Okay.
They would share that access drive.
It says pad 8. under
Thank
pad
you.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And it would be, it's the highest point on the property. I mean, it's right there where the property peaks and breaks both ways. And, I mean, you can just literally see it before you exit off Highway 80 going east. So that's a positive.
We'd heard about it, or I'd heard about it, and then it kind of went away. And I thought it was maybe back to wherever, La La Land, but
There was some miscommunication with the Whataburger engineer that they could not pave over part of the North Texas Municipal Water District easement. But we do have the easement document. You can pave over that. You can't pave over the Atmos easement, but you can pave over the North Texas, which gave them another 12 feet, which is kind of what they were missing. Whataburger are a little bit unusual from a fast food point of view. They're about 15 to 25 feet longer than most fast fooders. And they're putting in a double drive because they're expecting this to be one of their top stores. And when you start fitting all that in, we were just a few feet short on meeting their requirements for operations and to meet the city's requirements also. But I think we're going to be able to accommodate that.
Atmos has been tougher to deal with in the last couple of years as far as paving over their gas easement.
Atmos is hard. If anybody delays 352, it'll be Atmos at this point. We've been attending all of the 352 meetings, making sure that stays on track once a month. That's your new engineer, great guy. He's catching up quick. But Atmos is slow. And Atmos has a very big line crossing 352 along with North Texas.
Yes. Tougher than it used to be.
A lot tougher. We miss Ben Curtis.
Yes, we do.
You remember Ben?
Yes. His son's buying a lot in Stone Canyon. So.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah,
Good.
So Trey's going to be there.
Good.
So I just want to clarify something because I know I saw some of the faces in the audience. So Whataburger had told us they were pulling out and they were not coming. So that was what was relayed back to everybody. So that's, today had a conversation with them and they are, just as Mike said, they're working with them on the lot, trying to figure out how to reconfigure their building, their drawing to make it fit on that lot as well as meet our stacking requirements.
Now, I spoke with them today myself, so yeah, they're still very active. They want to be here. Everybody wants to be here at Chick-fil-A.
When would you estimate that Whataburger would, or y'all would be able to come to agreement with Whataburger?
You know, I'm thinking, let's just do the math on that real quick. I think we'll come to an agreement by mid-August.
Okay. This year?
This year.
Okay.
I think the contract will probably be until end of December for them to kind of go through their feasibility, come to the city, make sure it meets all the operations. They just got to get Whataburger corporate approval. And they're telling me they'll start within 6 months. So, you know, my goal here is, Quick Trip is telling me they will be open May 1st of next year. In fact, they have to be open May 1st. And I want Whataburger under construction in March. That way I've got 2 stores under construction, 1 fixing to open, and another one close. And, you know, hopefully the Provident deal across the street will have a couple of things going. And guys, we've just now opened the floodgates. I mean, we've created something that we've been all waiting for, hoping for, dreaming of for many, many years.
We get a lot of questions since the dirt started moving.
Oh, but you haven't get phone calls. I've got a niece that lives back there. She called me.
So I'm looking at, what is there, about 17 pad sites along the frontage? Is
Yes,
there
sir.
something like that?
You know, after Whataburger, I'm gonna have 2 left on Highway 80 that are next to where that existing entrance is. Then I'm gonna have another 2 as you go west from that entrance back towards Lupton. We're in the process of designing a lake. If you've been down there, the property drains across the highway, kind of between Lupton and where our traffic circle is, if you can see where that traffic circle is. And that's where God intended all the water to be. So we're in the process of designing a lake to back up restaurants off of Lupton onto that lake. That will be our permanent detention pond, but it will be called a retention pond that will have water full-time. We're looking at putting some kind of a fountain spray in the middle of it. We'll have to drill wells to make sure there's plenty of water that stays in it constantly. But that's where that goes. Now, as you go down Collins, since we've given that right of way for 352, we lack some depth along Collins. The area between what we call Stone Canyon entrance and Lupton, it could be a 8,000 or 9,000 square foot strip center with, we've got a drugstore planned on the corner of Collins and Lupton. So as you break it down, there's really not as many pad sites left as appears on that plan.
So I'm counting 8 along Highway 80. You're saying,
I'm gonna say 1, 2, 3, I'm gonna say 5 to 6.
okay, so of these pad sites, which are kind of prime frontage locations,
Yes.
we've got Whataburger and nothing else solid, it sounds like.
Not at this time. We're working with a couple, but nothing that I can discuss.
So how's the lack of having some internal development on that? Is that going to impact the development of these, I would call them kind of prime locations on 80 and Collins? You know, I guess what I'm wondering is, not having anything in future development, is this going to pick up? I mean, this is some pretty prime land right there, and
Absolutely.
I would hope it would have been further along than that, but I'm just curious where we are. It sounds like we've got one, we're in discussions, or we've got one, we're in discussions that are moving on number two, and then the rest is kind of discussion point, I guess, right now.
You know, we're in the middle of a major retail change in this country.
I understand.
H-E-B has canceled every one of their stores that they were going to build in Houston and San Antonio. They're not building any more new ones. Amazon has taken over the world. Delivery has taken over the world for grocery stores. So in the past, in the 90s and in 2000, you would go get your grocery store. He would be your anchor,
Right.
and then you would build your pads out after they came.
So is
And
there a
you would make
discussion with an alternative to a grocery store going on for it?
Well, we still believe there's going to be a grocery store there. We just got to kind of go through this system. We're not sure what that grocery store is going to look like, but we're not going to mess up that land. Our fear has been, it looks like a broke project, and we've got to get something going. We never in our wildest dreams thought we would put a Quick Trip on that corner, but we had to create activity, because activity begets activity. And so we're doing this backwards. We're now bringing in the gas station, which gas stations are internet proof. You know, can't get gas anywhere but at the station. Fast food, restaurants are internet proof. So you have to internet proof these projects.
I agree with that, and that's what those look like they were intended to be to begin with,
So we're now trying to prove up the project. We've had, Kroger has said they're gonna come back to us. They're waiting for Forney. But I believe the grocery store industry is about to change to where until Kroger and Tom Thumb are like the day before Thanksgiving, so crowded that you can't get out of there, they're not gonna be building one every 3 or 4 miles.
So what's your feeling on the pace of build out without an anchor there? How do you compare this to other anchor driven developments, and how do you think it's going to affect you going forward?
We're very confident. We're already having interest because people know that we have the Quick Trip. They know we're working Whataburger. They know Chick-fil-A is coming to the intersection. That there are a number of people that are now interested in this property. And until they see actual dirt moving, like they saw on Providence this week, no one believes it. So I've got to get dirt moving. I'm still confident that the one thing we haven't done is, we didn't go out and sell to Dollar General. We didn't go sell to Williams Chicken. We didn't go out and sell to Bubba's Barbecue. We have protected this property and been very careful on who we select so we don't ruin that back piece. Whataburger, in my opinion, in Texas, it's the new McDonald's. not a better leader for your fast food than a Whataburger or Chick-fil-A. I'll pick either one of those two. The problem with Chick-fil-A is traffic, but that's another issue. But in Quick Trip, I think Quick Trip is the best designed gas station, convenience store in the state of Texas, and I travel all of them.
So, to answer the question then, are you saying that without the anchor, you feel construction on this project can pick up pace to be consistent with other
Anchor
anchor-driven?
Absolutely. What I'm doing is creating activity to prove the market. When I can show that Chick-fil-A is doing $4 million in sales, and Whataburger is doing $2.5 million in sales, and Quick Trip is selling, then people are going to take an interest in it. Nobody believes in this town. Nobody believes in it. Trust me, we've had 3 grocery stores. Your town offered one of them $2.5 million to come.
Right.
And they chose to go do something else. They bought the old Walmart stores, 25 of them, and they're all failing. That was their mistake. But you know, my dad taught me a long time ago, you can't hold a gun to somebody's head and make them buy a piece of property. They'll come when they're ready to come.
Right.
Okay, but I is it that nobody, because I don't know, I kind of take, I don't think that nobody believes in Sunnyvale. I mean, I think people believe in Sunnyvale wholeheartedly, it's just that we don't have the rooftops to be able to justify having a grocer here. Not that people don't believe.
No, Tracy, and that's partially accurate, but a lot of the developers, the big name developers, they want to be in Prosper. They want to be in Frisco. They want to be up north. But
Because
yes,
they
but
don't
just a minute,
know
let me
about
finish my
Sunnyvale.
statement. Let me finish my statement. But yes, in the last 5 years, Sunnyvale has done their job. You do have the rooftops now. And it is making a difference. It is starting to finally make that difference. One of the biggest hindrances has been the incomes of Mesquite. We're offsetting the incomes of Sunnyvale. And when you look at the demographics and you draw the magic circle, there's more of them than are of you. But that number is changing, and y'all done a great job of the homes that you're putting in here. So yes, that synergy, that velocity is starting to take place. And with the opening of the Chick-fil-A, the Quick Trip, the Whataburger, justifies it. And the rest will come after. But no, this is not typically how you do this.
Thank you.
You had talked about you were waiting, pertaining to Kroger, you were waiting on Forney. What exactly did you mean by that?
Excuse me?
You had mentioned Kroger.
Yes, in Forney.
What exactly are we waiting on, or what does Forney's Kroger have to do with?
They're wanting to see how successful that Kroger store is. They believe that they are drawing people from Sunnyvale to that Kroger store, and what effect the loss of those sales will be there. Bottom line is, they'll have to close the Mesquite store to put a Kroger here. They own that land. They own that building. That's a problem. Typically, they lease and they don't own. But this is an old Kroger that's down there on Galloway, and they own that with Kimco. So that's my biggest hurdle, and it does pretty good. Kroger is the obvious buyer just to protect their backside from the Mesquite store. They're not going to lose their Mesquite traffic, and they get a Highway 80 site.
Twice you mentioned depth of the pad sites.
Yes.
And I think you're losing some acreage to the 352
Yes.
expansion, and then I guess Whataburger's something of a hybrid
It is a hybrid.
store. Did we make a mistake building the ring road too
Oh,
close
you
to?
didn't make a mistake. We look back at it and wish we had all that land. We went back 20 more feet, but
No, I was just
Yeah, no,
a curiosity
listen,
question more
it's
than,
no matter
so it
what.
has crossed y'all's mind as
oh
well.
yes, it has crossed our mind. I mean, we got a sewer line we put in that's going to be in the wrong place on Collins Road. We got to relocate. You know, you come in and you build these ring roads. You hire the best designers and engineers in Dallas. The guys that did our design and planning was Hodges and Associates. They did all the Stonebriar, Frisco Mall stuff. They've done every target development in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. They know what pads need. They know their size. That was 12 years ago.
Their crystal ball wasn't working that well at the time. Okay.
Yeah, I'd give anything to have 10 more feet. I'd give anything to have put that water line on the other side of the road than where it is on our pad sites. Mr. Cash knows what I'm talking about. But, you know, no matter what you do, no matter how much you plan, no matter who you hire, when you pre-develop this stuff, take risk. Now, are we still going to fill them in? Yes, we are. Whataburger's just a hybrid.
I mean, just
Whataburger.
for the record, we're very happy that you haven't settled for lesser tenants, because, you know, our wish in Sunnyvale is that we get the best that we can possibly
Right.
get. And I can only imagine how many calls you guys have had from possible tenants that are not what we would consider good for Sunnyvale.
It's somebody you wouldn't want, and it's somebody we don't want. It's a big project, guys. It's 125 acres. The last thing we want to do is make a mistake with the first few users.
So what kind of marketing takes place on it? Who's kind of, are you driving the effort on that, or, I'm not familiar with your operation over there, so forgive me, I'm new on the board, but.
You know, we deal with some of the development, the retail brokers that are familiar and deal with the grocery stores in the beginning. If you're trying to think, we had Edge Realty that was working the Kroger deal. We had, and I'm drawing a blank, who was working the Berkshire's deal. That deal was so close. And then, of course, the Market Street deal we had internally from Market Street that we had reached out to. And in our beginning phase of all this was to do nothing until we got a grocery store. And just not make a mistake, because we don't want to do something and it's in the way where the grocery store wanted to go. But at this point in the game, we have to start something. It's looking like a broke deal. And so that's why we went after Quick Trip. Quick Trip came to us, that's why we went after Whataburger. We made both of them hella deals, just to get them out there.
Have you guys considered incorporating some kind of senior living into this 125 acres?
We have. You know, we're looking at a lot of options on that, on what I call the 75-acre piece. That's the triangle. That's what future development piece is. You know, we have the land back there behind the hospital that we've looked at. We've talked with the assisted living people that are out here now, which my mother's there. It's a great place. They do a great job. We think that's out there. You know, we've turned down an industrial deal where we're zoned industrial over there off of Planters. We had a 20-acre deal, but it was going to be 24 hours, and we just don't want to put that out there right now. And trust me, we don't make any money on raw land. I mean, we only make money when we sell it. So we're being patient and trying not to make a mistake.
Back to his question about marketing, I believe it was the last time you were here, maybe the time before, but you had an individual that was associated with a national
Yes, and I'm trying to think of their
retail.
name. I'm just drawing a blank.
Are y'all still using that firm, or are you the exclusive?
They were specialists.
Okay,
You know, in a lot of this industry, they're specialists. The grocery stores are specialists. The hotels are specialists. We are contemplating going with a national company to list the entire tract. We're just simply right now focused on Whataburger, Quick Trip. Let's get them open. Let's get the hotel. More and more people are finding out about the property, and we'll move from there.
ideally, where would the hotel be located on this?
Ideally, can you show them there?
Yeah, there's two places.
Oh, okay, all right.
Right next to the senior living place on Lupton, on that side, next to Cal Street. Both of those sites on our concept plan show hotels, and then another restaurant on the Highway 80, Lupton corner.
Okay, I was trying to fit it in on Collins somewhere, and I couldn't get there, okay. I see.
What effect, if any, has the local referendum dealing with mixed drinks and alcohol had on y'all's, or is it not at all?
Not yet. I'm glad you did it. If you were gonna have to eventually do it, but there's really nobody in the sit-down restaurant industry that serves alcohol that we're dealing with right now. And that industry's hurting. Darwin, the Chili's, there's an interesting fact. The Chick-fil-A in Forney outperforms the Chili's in Forney. And Chili's is open 7 days a week and serve alcohol. Restaurants are hurting right now.
So are y'all looking exclusively at fast food places right now?
No. We're working with we're working with a sit-down restaurant right now that doesn't serve alcohol. Make that clear. You know, there's a couple of them out there floating around that are looking, but they're waiting to see what happens on these projects. And I think we've got a chance for them that we're designing a pad for around the lake. But that would serve alcohol. So we're working with some of those. But again, there's no interest out there right now until they see something going up.
This future rehab and fitness center, is that y'all? Or is that, okay.
That's where we thought a senior housing, we actually thought that would be a good location for the, not assisted living, but independent living housing. The group that owns the assisted living place has an independent living component within their group, and they were wanting to maybe build there, but they, haven't came back to us. But, basically you'd get them from independent to move to assisted living and then to memory care. They'd like to have a campus effect, if you will, close by. But I see that as a perfect place for that.
Other questions?
The restaurant you mentioned around the lake was one with alcohol or without alcohol?
With,
I thought you just said you weren't working.
no, we were planning a site for them to take to them. Larry Cates, our engineer. We gotta build a detention pond down there anyway, so we're taking it, we got 75 acres, I got more land I know what to do with, so I might as well try to put an amenity in, and make it sort of a sense of place. We basically got the idea from Waco. If you've ever been to Waco, over by the hospital of Highway 6 and 35, where all the restaurants are located, there's a lake they built down there for the detention pond. And they've got a walkway all around it, and it's not a big lake, and they've got 4 restaurants that back up to the lake. And the patrons, while they're waiting, can go out to the lake, it's got a pier on it, and wait, and it's just, we're in the plagiarism business. We saw something that looked good, and we gotta build one anyway, so let's try to copy that.
I think it's a great idea.
I think it really fit, especially if you put those restaurants on Lupton, and their patios are facing the east, you're not in the sun. I mean, I just think it would really work well.
I agree. People like water for obvious reasons. Yeah.
People like to go out to eat. Nobody likes to cook. But it's interesting that the corporate restaurants are really hurting. Darwin, the Olive Gardens, the TGI Fridays, the Chili's, they're all getting beat to death right now. Millennials don't like corporate restaurants. I got 2 of them, so I kind of know.
Well, I think we're, and I'm excited to see what comes down the pike. I think we're in an economic time right now that I think we're got to really, everybody's got to take advantage. Yeah, because I think, we've got a couple of years maybe of what seems to me to be pretty good growth happening, and
Totally agree with you.
this is
This
the
is
time.
this is the hottest real estate market we've ever seen.
Yeah, we got to strike. Yeah,
And it's
strike
taken
quickly.
forever to get anybody to come out here.
Yeah.
Forever, we were a tweener, Sunnyvale, because we were between Mesquite and Forney. Kroger jumps over, goes to Forney, and they do all the Forney development. You got the floodplain in the middle, so you had to let that develop out because we're too close to Mesquite. And back when Forney was just starting, when the Kroger and everything was going on, really just starting, the Walmart, we didn't have the rooftops in Sunnyvale.
Right.
But that's changing. You're doing your job, or at least council and P&Z is. But we're getting those rooftops, and they're good ones. $500,000, $400,000 houses, good household incomes. We're gonna be able to get the kind of retail that justifies that.
Well, I'm one of those Kroger foreign shoppers that goes out there, so they're probably tracking me.
Rick studies and reads all the time, and he's a member of all of the trade magazines, the grocery store magazines, and the retail magazines. And he really believes, he's gonna be patient and wait, but Whole Foods is gonna come out with a new concept. Amazon did not buy Whole Foods just to let it be Whole Foods. And there will be an Amazon pickup center, Whole Foods, some type of a grocery store, and we're gonna do our best to try to pick up one of those. That's really the type of use that we're wanting out there. Will I take a Signature Kroger? Absolutely. Will I take an Aldi? No. Will I take a Winco? No. Winco came to us. I wasn't interested in Winco. Sack your own groceries? That's not what we want out here.
Yeah, we drive to 42, for the record.
Well, I will use the Tom Thumb in Mesquite, but on Saturdays, I'm usually at the Central Market over in Butler's.
So Mike, we have 2 developments now that are essentially competing for a grocery store. as you know, the northwest corner is also looking for a grocery anchored tenant.
Mhm.
So scenario that grocery store goes on that side.
Mhm.
What do you see on this site where the future develops?
Tracy and I disagree on this, but I think there's room for two. I think the growth that's happening out in East Texas, the area is totally underserved on the east side of the highway. We've done 2 studies that were done by Market Street that show it's underserved. I think you can have one in Town East and you can have one here too. You gotta remember, all the growth is going east. Sunnyvale, Forney's building 10,000 homes. We're on the going home side. So at this point, we're still a believer. We're still a believer for a grocery store, and we're not gonna give up.
I have no-
Other questions?
Thank you, Mike.
Thank
Mike,
you.
thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Thank y'all, appreciate it.
Thanks for coming.
Item 4, discuss and consider Sunnyvale Gateway signage possibilities and what would be required.
Thank you, gentlemen. So this was put on the agenda because one of the goals has been for the 4A to look at signage on the entryway gateways coming into town. We had, when we first started bringing this up and really started working on it, we didn't have an engineer. Now we have our engineer. I gave him some time to get his feet wet and hit him up with the signage. So now we're looking at possible areas around town that signage could be available. He went and drove around to some of the areas this morning based on our zoning regulations. We have some monument signs and locations of where those monument signs may be within our design criteria manual. And a couple of those are on Beltline when you come in from the north and when you come in from the south. A couple along 80, both entryways in, and then you have one at the south side on 352 as you're coming north on 352 from Mesquite. After Lyle and I, the engineer, and I got to talking about this, looking and seeing what available sites there are, we both agree that if we were to move forward with this, that we need to probably put our focus on Beltline, because 80, we're not real sure. We have kind of 80 expansion plans, but until that gets finished and built out, we don't know what areas we would actually be able to build in. And so we wouldn't feel comfortable putting something until 80 is complete. Then when you're looking at 352, with the 352 expansion, the same thing, you don't want to put anything until that expansion is complete. Then you have the monument sign already on Collins, and that'll stay with even with the expansion. So we felt like Beltline would be our best option to look at to be able to just get something started. So when he drove out today, one of the things that he looked at was as the northernmost part of our city limits, where Daniel Steel is, just north of Daniel Steel is a bunch of floodplain area. And he said it's kind of low compared to the ground. So if you wanted to put something there, you'd be looking at something that's kind of more of a monument sign that would stand up taller, so that you could actually see it as you're driving in. The other option was at Tripp and Beltline, and it would be the northeast corner. But he felt like the best possible option on that would be about halfway down that property that's for sale. And the only reason of that is you have that big grand entry into Mesquite right there on Tripp. So he felt like that would be more the focus than a Sunnyvale sign would be if we just put a monument sign on that property. So we'd have to figure out with that property owner if we could even take a portion of his property to be able to do something like that. So I wanted to put this on the agenda to kind of let y'all know that these were our options and what we were looking at right now, if that was feasible. And then if y'all had any ideas on what you were looking at for signage, to just kind of get an idea and feel for what conversations y'all had before on signage.
What are we looking at, like the brick, almost tombstone looking thing, or, I mean, what are we considering for signage?
Well, that was part of my question. I put on the dais, you have the design criteria manual, and it shows you some examples of some of the signs that can be done. Now, this one is a pretty grand sign, but looking at the signs, like we have right here on Collins, the one that we have on Town East by the library. You do little monument signs like that.
Monument, not tombstone, I'm sorry.
Get the terminology right.
Sorry.
A little morbid.
I have probably a very simplistic question, but those medians that run along Beltline, are they usable for signage?
Well, Lyle and I talked about that today too. I mean, it's not a very big median, but he just was wondering, he's not sure what's underground to know if we could do something in the median.
My only point is I'm thinking about the sign over in the floodplain by Daniel Steele. I mean, that's off to the side. People driving in, may see it, I guess, if they're northbound or southbound. Northbound people would probably see it, but it's way, kind of way off to the side. Sometimes I'm wondering if the ornateness of certain things and the cost of doing so are worth it, and if we can make something more affordable that still looks good, but can be used in places maybe that are more visible. I don't know. I'm not a sign expert by any means. But.
Well, that's why I was talking about, if we did the one on Daniel Steele, especially because it's kind of lower than the actual road, then you'd have to do, maybe 6 to 8 foot tall, structure that shows something. So I mean, there are options. These are just things we kind of briefly talked about today when he was kind of driving around and looking to get a conversation started to figure out what we could do. So then I didn't even know we put in the budget that we have some money to be able to make signs or do signs, but I wasn't really sure what y'all thought of when you were thinking of gateway signs. And if it could be something simple, when we were looking, if you're going southbound on the right-hand side of the road, our city limits town limits start right at Catfish Cove. So there's really nothing there to show that that's the start of Sunnyvale.
Right.
So, is there just like a pole sign like you see on the highway that says, "Welcome to Sunnyvale" or something like that? I'm sure we couldn't do a pole sign, but, something along those lines that's just simple to show people where we're at.
I agree with Paul. I think the medians would be way more advantageous from a visual aspect, but I'm just thinking, if you build it, they will hit it.
I understand. I'm just.
Yeah, most of those trees have chunks taken out of them, if you've noticed.
We can reinforce it, I guess, but yeah, I think the medians should be considered, because that's a lot more, and you can do it from, double-sided as well, so I'd be inclined to look at that. It's big enough, and it's not off to one side or the other, and they're just
What are you
trees.
thinking about in the floodplain, like a billboard, like a highway sign,
I'm having a hard time visualizing it, to be honest.
or one of those V signs that gets viewed from both
I don't
northbound
know
and
what
southbound?
was being considered.
What are we talking about there?
One of those tall monument signs, like 6 to 8 feet tall up in the air that you can see. So it essentially, for a visual perspective, if you take one of the pillars at the bridge and put something like that over there.
I like the median idea better.
I need to pay more attention as I'm driving around town, which I'm doing a lot, of some other towns of what they're doing, and maybe you've already done that and seen some examples.
We have seen some, we've pulled up some, but if you see some and take
Yeah.
pictures, that never hurts.
Good point. I'll make a point of trying to pay attention to. What's interesting too is our geography kind of cuts in and out a little bit too.
Mhm.
It's kind of strange. It's not like it's a pure entry and now you're leaving. It's kind of like, well, you're in it, you're out of it, you're in it.
Depends on what side of the highway you're on.
Mhm.
Yeah?
So this is, it's just initial conversation, get the ball rolling, get something started.
Good.
I'm gonna say too, I mean, we can take a backtrack, I guess, but since the dirt started moving over here at Provident, my gosh, the interest is way high from everybody I've talked to.
Are you seeing more interest in your building?
No, unfortunately, but we're gonna do some tweaking on that. I'll tell you about it. But just random people I talk to want to know what's going on over there, and a lot of people are really, really curious. I can see that being maybe exceeding our expectations of generating interest in town, just like Mike talked about. Just when dirt's moving and stuff's happening, it generates more interest. So it's going to be a changing world over there.
What are they doing, putting in the water? What?
Just digging, just scraping dirt right now.
But that has
We were
nothing
working
to
on
do
the
with
elevation.
signage.
Yeah, they're starting to build the basic elevations that they need to start putting their pads in. So dirt's
Haven't
flying.
been by there in a while.
Are they building that park back there? Have they started on that yet?
Guys, back to number 4,
No.
gateway signage.
But that'd be a good place for a sign.
Good segue.
Because when you turn south on Collins forever, it's like Mike said, that was perceived to be Mesquite until Stone Canyon came in, honestly. And now that things are happening on that part of Collins, we need to make sure people know that you're still in Sunnyvale. But I know that it's going to be under construction, so whatever we did, especially in the median, might just be temporary until they get done with all that. So I like that location for signage.
On the south side, 352.
Yes, in the median, preferably.
Northern entrance into town. And what about, just as an aside, what about coming in from, turn
Garland,
left by Valero and you go further south on
Clay.
Clay? Yeah, as far, you cross into Mesquite there pretty quick. That seems like a natural spot too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hard angle though, the city limits, the town limits, if you've seen that.
Oh, it's another one?
Yeah, it's another one of those goofy angle deals, but we could still, after they did their reconstruction, if there's a median there, then that'd be a good place for one as well, I think. But not now, because there's no median, among other things. Somewhere down there around, I don't know, right, probably where the town limits, where that angle cuts 352, somewhere in there, like you're saying. Coming that way, you're coming from Mesquite, and we announce it, welcome to Sunnyvale kind of thing there too.
Oh, but you're talking
I'm
Clay
talking
by
about
the
Clay.
industrial park.
Yeah,
Said
coming in.
Clay.
That
Oh,
road
yeah.
That
Yeah.
road gets a lot of
That's
action.
another one too, yeah. And there's a good median
That
there.
one will be tricky because of the, right where our town limits are, the railroad tracks, and then there's a business immediately right there.
We
But
could
there
put it
is a
past
median
there,
there though.
in that median, just past Dalta, whatever it is,
Right across from
Mohawk or
Ronci.
whatever, Moranci. Yeah.
So we'll explore
We'll
this
pick it
more
up.
and bring it back.
Item 5 will be discussed in executive session. Item 6, discuss and consider purchasing policy.
Unfortunately, with everything going on, just have not able to complete the purchasing policy. So I'll get it to you, and hopefully the next couple of weeks, I'll have one put together and get to you prior to the next meeting so that you can review it before the next meeting.
The one question I had, Tracy, and I don't want to bog it down here, but when we're making these expenditures, because I think the same policy is going to apply to 4A and 4B, correct? Is it, like for expenditures under the 3,000 or the 2,500, if it's a budgeted item, it can be done through the board's approval strictly? I mean, in other words, I saw where agreements need to be approved by the town manager, or the council gets involved in really, really big things. But I guess you know, for a lot of the smaller purchases that we have, and we've had several of them, is that, if it's a budgeted item and it's under a certain dollar threshold, is it something the boards can just approve and move forward with, or what's the level of approval through that, or is it town manager?
Essentially, anything that the board approves, I mean, y'all have the authority, it's approved and it's a done deal. I think where the purchasing policy said in there is anything over $2,500, then it's just, he signs off on it to say, okay, you know,
Town manager.
I've looked at it, yes.
Yes.
And then town council, and just by law, anything over $10,000, they have to approve.
Okay, okay.
Does that answer your?
It clarifies it. I was just a little unsure, you know, how that worked, but thank you.
You're welcome.
Item 7, we're skipping until the next meeting. Item 8, discuss and consider updates.
Go ahead and read them.
Okay,
so that if
discuss and
somebody's
consider
watching,
general
they know.
business, commercial zoning areas that we're gonna skip in this meeting and defer to our
Future.
September meeting. Discuss and consider updates from ED Director, TxDOT expansion plans for US Highway 80 and State Highway 190.
So just to let y'all know, we've been talking and meeting with TxDOT on the expansion of Highway 80. They've got their environmental specialists out right now asking all the town's questions about if any of the developments in the corridor that they're looking at will affect future developments. We finally were able to get a hold of what the right-of-way acquisitions are going to be along 80, and it does affect one current business that was looking to expand in a location. But it's just taking 15 feet right-of-way into his property. So we've worked those details out with him, and he's able to move forward with his plans. So other than that, it's not going to affect anything, any developments along 80. They are going to go to a 6-lane highway, and then on the frontage roads, it's going to be 2 or 3-lane frontage roads with one-way access only. When, they can't give us a date yet on when they'll even start looking at that. So as more information comes, I'll keep you posted. On SH 190, that's nowhere in the horizon yet. There may be a town hall meeting sometime in November is what they're looking at. They're still doing their geotechnical work. So we're still unsure of when the dates are future of 190.
Do we have what's the ballpark about when we think 190 would start moving again? I mean, is it in the next 5 years, the next 10 years?
I mean, they're working on it. They've contacted our town engineer about geotech work, but that's all. They're still in those phases.
And are they still looking at multiple routes, or are they focused on a particular one of those route choices?
As far as I know, we're still on the same route, but I don't know.
The
I don't know that.
second east or the second west? There were 4.
I don't
one of
know.
them-
That was
okay.
before my time.
Okay.
I don't know which. I just know the one we have that's in there is on the map that's in the back conference room. That's the route that I know of. I don't know
Okay.
that it's changed from that route.
Back, back to 80, I'm sorry.
That was gonna be my question. Back to 80. Where does the expansion begin and end? Is it all the
Exactly
way
what I
into
wanted.
Dallas to Loop 12 where
Yeah,
it shrinks to 2 lanes, or is it?
Just to the west of 635 all the way to Forney.
Okay.
So that's all I have on that. Just wanted to kind of let y'all know where that was at.
In conjunction with that, sort of related, can we visit about, not today, but down the road, about the possibility of putting some kind of maybe an underground trail system under 80 to connect if we do the rails to trails deal or whatever?
So I don't know about underground because of the drainage.
Yeah.
We did talk to them about, I guess in the plans before, in the Rails to Trails project, they had a bridge going over 80. So we asked this lady about that possibility, and she didn't know about it. That was out of her realm. So she was gonna go back and find out if that was still a feasible bridge to be able to do should the Rails to Trails project come.
Okay.
But we did, I was kind of kidding, saying we could tunnel it, kind of like the pedestrian, but then, there's a lot of drainage in that area, and it would just be a major concern that you wouldn't be able to really.
I guess we can visit that down the road, but there used to be a bridge, a railroad bridge, and they tore it out. Sadly, but that's the way it is.
Wouldn't expand the new highway though, would it?
It probably wasn't high enough, they probably would have torn it out anyway, yeah, so.
Item 9, discuss future agenda items and events. Our next regular meeting is September the 12th at 5 o'clock. The chamber luncheon will be September 12th at Town Hall from 11:30 to 1. Regular town council meetings, August 13th and 27th.
Real quick on the chamber quarterly luncheon, I apologize, I can't remember exactly what he's gonna talk about, but, Chris McNeil is gonna be our speaker for the chamber luncheon on the 12th.
Discuss and consider an economic development survey to citizens.
And that item's just to remind me to bring it back. I need reminders.
And we're glad you're busy,
Uh,
that's good,
That's good, busy.
yeah.
And now we recess into executive session pursuant to Chapter 551, Subchapter D of the Texas Government Code.
Can you go and say which agenda item and section that is?
I'm sorry?
Under A, section 551.087.
To discuss Project Barn, Project Salsa, Project AC, Project Supply, and Project Water,
And project landscape.
and Project Landscape.